Good afternoon, everyone, and hi, Max. Hi, Lottie, and
Hey.
Hey,
thank you for joining us today for our 2024 Netherlands Data and AI Salary Guide launch. For those of you who don't know, Harnham are the world's largest data and AI talent solution provider. Everything we do is around fostering talent in the data and AI space, and we've been doing this for close to 2 decades now. We have 5 different pillars. So the first 2 are permanent and freelance recruitment for the global market. That covers everything from entry level to CDO roles, and we have both of these services available in the Netherlands. Our final 2 pillars fall under Rockborn. So that's our award-winning data and AI consultancy. We hire diverse graduates, 12 them on train them on a 12-week program, and then deploy them on site with our clients, helping to fill the skills gap in the industry. Finally, we do provide bespoke training through Rockborn. This is rolled out for our clients by our data coaches there, and that covers everything from data engineering to analytics to prompt engineering and Gen AI. I actually head our Netherlands practice, but we also have offices globally, including France, the UK, and all of the US. So onto our salary guide. So we've been running this for over a decade, and our salary guide offers unparalleled insights from the largest census of data and AI professionals across the world. I'm actually really proud to be part of a company that can do this kind of thing and add value back into the data industry. The guide contains up-to-date salary breakdowns, hiring trends, market snapshots, and generally presents an insight into the data and AI space and the factors affecting talent today. We had over 3,500 respondents to the survey, and we gathered more than 180,000 data points to provide the analysis. And this is done through our team at Rockborn, looking at all of that data from our respondents, roles we recruited, data roles advertised online. We collate all that together and analyze it to provide the guide. But on to today's session. So we're going to have a chat covering some key findings and overarching trends, as well as the data industry as a whole in the Netherlands. So let's kick off with some introductions. So Lottie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone. So I'm Lottie. I'm originally from Brighton in the UK, and I've been at Harnham for the past 5 years. So I originally started in our data science and machine learning team, and then relocated to Amsterdam about a year ago, which I'm really enjoying. And now I manage our permanent team that's based in the Netherlands.
Great, thanks Lottie. And Max?
yes, hi everyone. I'm Max. I'm 28 years old. I'm from The Hague. I'm managing the contract team in Harnham. I'm working here now for more than 1.5 years. So yeah, that's about me.
Great. And as I mentioned, I'm the director here for the Netherlands practice. I've actually got 11 years experience in the data recruitment industry, and I've been heading up our Netherlands practice for nearly 2 years now. So just to and before I kick off, actually, you can download the guide in the comments section below. So feel free to download the guide, have a look at the salaries and all the insights that we present there as we go. So to kick off, we're going to speak a bit about AI. It's obviously been a big change in the industry over the last 12 months with the growth of Gen AI in the industry. We responded to this by adding some questions in the survey around AI, and it seems like a good place to start. So according to Hostinger, AI is projected to contribute 15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030, as well as creating 133 million jobs. And that's not unexpected, considering the opportunity with efficiency, innovation, and all the other things that are discussed around the topic. We actually asked data professionals how they perceived AI, and 63% of data professionals view AI positively, and 60% already use it in their day-to-day job. So it's clearly already having an impact on the market. Max, you're a specialist in AI freelance recruitment. So What are you seeing people talking about when it comes to AI in the market?
From what you say, I think the numbers from the survey are expected. From what I heard from my clients is that AI has buy-in from company boards, especially with media hype. However, yeah, what is harder is getting budgets for these projects. It's agreed that good data is needed to make AI work, and that it's expensive and takes a lot of time to set up nowadays. There's also needs, yeah, to be business case set up that demonstrate AI will make money or save time, and that is harder nowadays.
Yeah, completely agree. I think businesses want to see some clear ROI before they commit too heavily to any big projects. There's always interest, but particularly at budget sign-off level, they're not sure if the investment is worth it in the current economic climate. Um, in terms of hiring for AI, what changes are we seeing to meet the new demands?
In reality, the demand is actually the highest for data engineer roles, rather than AI and data science roles at this point. Companies need strong data infrastructure before they can leverage AI. Yeah, what we also see is we are seeing a rise in data governance and data management roles. And whilst there is a talk of chief AI officers, it's mostly chief data officers expanding their roles. There is some increase in roles dedicated to AI, but it isn't as big as you would think.
Yeah, that's interesting. And clients who are hiring for dedicated AI roles, are they coming from any specific industry, or do they have anything in common?
Yes, they do. Companies hiring for AI roles tend to be more, yeah, major, bigger, and with data structures in place. It's usually sectors with major analytics environments. So, yeah, you can think about tech, software, banking, insurance, pharma. The biggest issues, yeah, that they are facing budgets most of the time.
Yeah, and there's been lots of talk of budget constraints on the market at the moment, and it's been a big theme this year.
Yeah, 100%. I think the unclear outcomes and direction of AI is definitely a big blocker when allocating budget. Companies need to figure out their AI policies as well nowadays, which is a huge undertaking. As our survey shows, only 37% of companies have an AI policy at this point.
Yeah, that was interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how that changes with the AI Act. Um, Lottie, have you noticed anything?
Yeah, I think what I've noticed is the data governance changes are really interesting. So what we've seen is that is getting talked a lot more at board level, due to like the implications on AI as well as implications with the upcoming European AI Act, which also seems to be having an impact on the market as well.
Yeah, has that resulted in more roles?
Yeah, 100%. We've seen that there's definitely been an increase in roles and not just at one level, but across all levels within yeah, data governance.
And are there any new roles relating to the AI Act rather than broader data governance?
Not massively. I think some companies have been mentioning it more, but that we haven't seen a rise in dedicated roles, but perhaps this could potentially increase in 2025.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, because I have spoken to a couple of people this week who are thinking about hiring for it, so it could be a big area next year.
Yeah.
Um, before we uh, quickly before we move on to the next section, just a quick reminder: you can download the data from the guide, including the full salary reporting, commentary, and key trends, in a link via the comments below. And now we're going to move on to some discussion around general hiring trends, and particularly the candidate sentiment for people looking for jobs. So what was really interesting in the guide is only 17% in the Netherlands were open to leaving their current role. This number's much lower than the US and the UK, and only 2% above the French market that we also surveyed. It's also a massive drop from last year, so it came in at 63% of people open to leaving their current role in 2023. At the same time, respondents actually said they feel more as secure, as they did last year. Lottie, do you have any idea why that might be, and are those results expected?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I was actually surprised this was so low, as it definitely seems to be a jobs-led market. As often when we do post a role or there's a role posted online, there'll be a lot of applicants for every vacancy.
Yeah, and we've definitely got data on that. We have hundreds of ad responses within a few days of a campaign for a new role, and typically the challenge is finding candidates that meet all of the specialised requirements amongst the applications. Um, uh, why do you think there are lots of candidates available at the moment in the Netherlands?
Well, I think at the moment there's definitely fewer jobs out there. So when something interesting does come up, that people are more likely to apply. As well as this, people in the Netherlands will often be on a fixed term contract for their first year. And we've seen that in more than in previous years, there's cases of these not being extended, which means candidates need to look for another role again. Bigger companies are also making changes to their data teams and they're making redundancies. As we said before, it seems like there's more budget constraints. So, yeah, there's more structural changes within data teams as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of companies in the Netherlands with global offices here, so international businesses with their head office here, and many of those have had big restructures that have been in the news here over the past year.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of the people we surveyed were already in roles. So
Yeah.
why would passive candidates be hesitant to leave at the moment?
Well, I think coming onto the fixed term contract again, if someone is on a fixed term contract that goes permanent, they may be less likely to apply for something new because they don't want to risk going on another 1 year fixed term contract. As well as this, mid level professionals are well looked after within the market. It's definitely the role that's most in demand from what we've seen over the past year. And we find that senior level professionals are more likely to stay where they currently are if they're being well looked after.
Yeah, and those mid-level professionals seem really sought after at the moment, or mid to senior, where they can come in, add value from day one, don't need loads of training. That's where we've seen the biggest client demand for us. Um, so when people are looking, why have they been looking to leave? The data came back that the top reasons were number one, salary dissatisfaction, two, career progression or lack of it, three, poor management, four, poor company culture, and five, relocation. It's interesting that relocation came out as a top factor. Um, Lottie, do you have any thoughts about why that might be?
Yeah, well, obviously, a large proportion of the data workforce here are expats. So, a lot of candidates might be looking to leave because they want to return and be back with their families, or alternatively, they have a visa that might expire.
Ah, that makes sense. So salary dissatisfaction was top. Are you seeing that as an important factor in conversations with people looking for jobs?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that candidates are mentioning. Often they will be dissatisfied with their salaries. And I think this is just due to the cost of living increases over the past few years. Also, companies aren't increasing their salaries as often. So, what we see is that candidates might be in a position where they're taking on more responsibility or they're taking on more workload, but they're not actually being compensated by their salary increasing.
Okay, so does that mean people are looking for big pay rises?
Interestingly, probably not as much as in previous years.
Okay, why do you think that might be?
I think candidates are more aware now that the job market is a lot tighter and companies might not have the same budget as they did in previous years. So they're less likely to ask for it or they feel less comfortable asking for it.
Okay, so salary is important to people when they're moving because they want to maintain their lifestyle and be paid for what they're doing and their responsibilities. So that's why it's come out on top, but it's no more than that. They're just looking for a bit of security, maybe, and fair pay for their skills. Just looking at a couple of stats from the guide, I think that's reflected in the data. We actually had the lowest pay increases for several years. Um, I think lack of progression came in second, Lottie. Is that coming up in conversations when people are looking for permanent roles?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really big factor for candidates at the moment because often they'll feel that they're taking on more responsibilities, but it won't be reflected in their salary or their title or defined responsibilities. So I think that's causing frustrations with quite a lot of candidates at the moment.
Okay, makes sense. And poor management and poor culture were third and fourth. Um, Lottie, have you seen that on the market?
Again, I would say this is something that I haven't actually seen as much, to be honest. What most people are talking about is career development, learning opportunities, and salary. Maybe because of budget constraints we've already spoken about, there's been limitations on progression and salary, and then training and development will also be impacted as well.
Okay. Um, that's a good point. So, if you're just as a quick update, if you're just joining us, we're talking about Harnham's Netherlands salary guide, which just released a couple of weeks ago. If you missed the start of the chat, the full video will be available on our LinkedIn page at the end of the show. Um, so, um, just moving on to tech. So obviously technology is super important in the data industry, and the top technology came back as Python in at number one, Azure in at number two, SQL in at number three, AWS in at number four, and Power BI number five. Uh, Max, any surprises there on the top tech in the industry?
No, I'm not surprised by these numbers. Python is used now in almost all data roles alongside SQL. Um, Azure continues to dominate the cloud market in the Netherlands, with the most reports saying they have around 70 to 80% market share. However, one thing we're looking out for next year is, yeah, the increase in LLM tools such as ChatGPT, as it becomes more important part of data roles.
Um, Interesting. Are there any other important skills you'd recommend candidates have a look at if they're looking for jobs?
Um, yeah, these five are the most important ones we see. However, the most important skills as well as these are business skills. So being able to understand a problem, manage projects, and connecting the data work to value business.
Yeah, super interesting point there. I think what we've found is that the candidates who are getting offered the jobs aren't necessarily the strongest candidates technically. They're often the people who have really good communication skills and understand how data relates to business problems in whatever domain they're in, rather than anything else. It's probably a good opportunity to tackle a question from Lucy, sorry, who says, with all the AI tools available, do you think this will positively or negatively impact the job market? It's quite a big question, and it's really difficult to predict that kind of thing. Um, Maybe Max or Lottie, do you want to have a go at that question?
Yes, I can step in. I think it's interesting, and like you said, it's a really big conversation, and I think there's a lot of different things to say about this. What I would say is that I think the changes can be both positive and negative. I think it will really depend on what company or industry is implementing the AI tool. And how quickly organizations will adapt to it. For example, more junior roles may be decreased as the efficiency of AI tools could automate tasks that maybe more junior data analysts or data scientists are doing. But what we could see is that there would be an increase in the demand for jobs within AI or senior data professionals where they really need to guide and interpret and like talk about the data, which I think is interesting because it's also what we've really seen over the last year, where there's really a demand for senior data engineers or senior data professionals within the market.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And it's like we've spoken to quite a few different vendors and people using different tooling, and there's loads of AI automations coming up in all of their pipelines. So it is going to be interesting seeing how the market changes over the next year, because I think it's going to be pretty dynamic. Um, Okay, another big part of the survey that we look at is benefits and remote working, and what's important to people when they're searching in the market. Um, in the Netherlands, the top perks were number one, remote working and working from home. Number two was a bonus. Number three was transport allowance. Number four, health insurance. And number five was stock options. So remote working and working from home was a big winner here. Why do you think that was so popular, Lottie?
Yeah, I think this is so popular because work-life balance is really important here, and being able to work remotely really helps people achieve their personal goals. So whether that's supporting your family or keeping fit, or yeah, it could be anything really.
Yeah, definitely, and that's useful for me personally as well. It makes a big difference for me.
Yeah.
Do people want as much remote working as possible then?
Well, it definitely wouldn't be the case for everyone because for most people, they do actually prefer to go on in a hybrid basis. So for many people, knowledge sharing is really important. A lot of our clients do like knowledge sharing sessions every 2 weeks, and a candidate will get a lot more out of that if they're going and meeting, obviously, the team face to face. As well as this, I think people do want to still build relationships with their colleagues. So they want to get the most out of the working culture. And obviously, this is more applicable if they're able to go in on a hybrid scale instead of working fully remotely.
Yeah, definitely. And colleagues always love to have lunch together here. It's a lot of Dutch businesses have big company-wide lunches, so it's important to get people in the office for those kind of relationship-building activities. Um, and we've also, I mean, I've just moved from the UK, as did you, Lottie, a year and a half or so ago, and people are more protective of their personal time here than in the UK, definitely, and it's something that you really notice in your conversations. Um, could the number of expats here also influence the need for remote or flexible working?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously that a lot of expats who are here might want to spend a month or so with their families throughout the year. So having that remote working option is really I guess attractive for them. As well as that, we find that yeah, a lot of Dutch nationals sometimes are trying to avoid the rain in the winter. So yeah, they might also be more inclined to work abroad remotely for a month as well.
Yeah, definitely feeling that this week, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, and it's a super perk, and people who have that benefit of being able to work abroad for a month a year, people love it. So if you can provide that, it can help you attract talent. The fact transport allowance is mentioned was also unusual compared to other markets for us globally. There's obviously a legal requirement here to cover travel costs, so that's necessary. Lottie, do you think it's anything more than that?
Yeah, well, if some people are traveling between different cities, the costs are really high here. So they do need 100% compensation to cover that. A lot of bigger Dutch companies will provide like a full NS travel card, and some even offer a car allowance on top. So all of that would be really hard to give up if you already have it because it really helps when contributing to the cost of ease of living.
Yeah, uh, definitely. We've seen people decline offers actually, because although they're offered a higher basic salary, they're once the calculate for losing an NS card or losing, a car allowance, a total package ends up being much more. So it's not worth the risk of moving. Um, Bonus came in second in importance. Of course, everyone wants a bonus, but Lottie, why do you think that's ranked so highly?
Again, I think it's because of the cost of living, and it's just a way of getting extra money to obviously achieve personal goals. I think as well, where companies haven't been increasing their salaries as much, a bonus is just obviously really desirable now because it's just an extra incentive when someone's working hard, and just a way to get a bit of extra money as well.
Yeah, and in the data, it was surprising actually. Only 30% of people received that we surveyed received a bonus last year, and the average bonus of people that did receive one was 15%, compared to 24 the previous year. That was a bit lower than I expected.
Yeah, me too, actually. I think maybe the reason for that is they might have agreed to get a bonus at the beginning when they signed their contract, but then because of cases where companies aren't performing as well, perhaps these bonuses aren't actually being paid out.
Mm. Yeah, um, maybe that's why it's close to the top of the
Yeah.
benefits, because they're not people aren't getting what they expect, so it's front of mind. Um,
Mm.
just before we move on to the next section, uh, just a reminder: you can download the guide now in the comments, and we are broadcasting this on playback, so you can start this again from the beginning or view it at a later time if you want. If you're joining now and you've missed anything. And I'm actually going to tackle a couple of questions that we've received now, because we've had some good ones in. Um, Hamza asked, he said that we mentioned um, chief AI officers earlier. He asked if that's just a trendy job title and a luxury for bigger tech companies, or is it something that we think all businesses will end up needing? Um, Max, maybe I'll throw this to you before I offer my thoughts. Do you think all businesses will want a chief AI officer in the future, or do you think it's just a bit of a luxury for tech companies?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's more for the bigger companies who will use it for now. So we are first seeing, we'll see how it will goes with AI in general, I think, in the companies. But for smaller companies, yeah, it's not a title that they will use yet. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I'd echo that in the next couple of years. I do think like eventually they will need companies will need chief AI officers, but maybe that'll be a few years down the line. I don't think we're quite there yet, and a lot of companies, their data maturity is pretty low, so adopting AI feels like a long way off, unless the vendors can do something magical where you don't need a good data infrastructure or data management environment before that gets kicked off. Um, and okay, so I do have a couple more questions, but we'll pick those up at the end. So we're going to start talking about the freelance market for a little bit. It's obviously a big market in the Netherlands. I think the percentage of freelancers in data is actually bigger here than any other country in Europe. So it's an important part of the market. Max, what is the freelance market like in the Netherlands for data right now?
Yeah, in some of the markets, there's a really high demand for freelancers. So then you have to think about data quality, data governance, architecture, and AI, especially in companies who are working in with construction, energy, insurance, banking. Uh, these companies are scaling quite fast nowadays. They need flexibility as they grow.
Uh, yeah, and those are definitely the industries where we've seen the demand for freelancers, where people are kicking off big projects and there's good budget behind them. Um, so with that in mind, is the market good for contractors right now?
Being honest, it's mixed at the moment. It has been better in the past. But yeah, we are definitely not in bad times, but also not in really good times. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
Okay, that's interesting considering the demand from businesses. Why do you think that is?
Mm, yeah, there are a few reasons for that. First of all, the economic climate has meant companies are a bit cautious when spending money on freelancers because they can be expensive, so they can be difficult to sign off. Another reason is the new regulation, DBA it's called, and it starts 1st of January, of course. So companies are as well a little bit cautious for that, and they want to wait to see how that will go. So yeah, these are the main reasons I think for now.
Okay, and do you think managers or people building teams still want to hire freelancers?
Yeah, the managers 100% would like to hire freelancers because the people that are usually freelancers are highly specialized in what they do, and they can add a lot of value quite quickly as well. If you have a high impact project that needs to be delivered quickly, freelance can do it quickly and effectively. Yeah, so that's really important for managers. And also the resource is more flexible, so it's faster to get freelancers in, and if they finish the job, you can get rid of them as well.
Yeah, and I've noticed that, like, speaking to leaders in the data industry, I think most people would love to hire some freelancers to inject energy and pace into some projects in the team. And if a project has an end date, often it's the preferred option. Um, However, there are budget constraints to that, and that's often the limiting factor. Um, how has the change in the demand for contractors affected the hourly rates, Max?
At the moment, the rates are the same in the last 2 years. I don't see much difference in that. That's also confirmed by our data, which says the rates have only increased by 1%. So yeah, not much on there.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting that it only increased by 1%, considering inflation is much higher than that, particularly over the last 2 years. Um, any reason why you think that might be?
Yeah, I think that's because there are fewer contracts available. So that's why freelancers also have to become a little bit more flexible nowadays.
Yeah, makes sense. And earlier you mentioned data quality, data governance, and AI roles were in demand. Have you seen any other skills that were needed on a freelance basis?
Yeah, companies are looking also for people between the business and tech teams. So think about business analysts, product owners, project managers, architects, analytics translators. So way more.
Okay. Okay, and those kind of roles actually tie into what we were saying earlier, where um, some companies want to use data and AI, but aren't sure how. Those roles are all positions where they can take business needs, translate them into tech requirements, and deliver them via projects. They're also particularly like project managers and architects are often roles that can have a clear beginning and end, because they're often associated with projects. So that makes them really suitable for freelancers.
Yeah, exactly. And that means there's not a lot of risk with the new regulations.
Yeah. And you mentioned AI roles earlier. What's the demand for contractors in AI?
Um, Yeah, I think it's quite good. NLP and LLM are most common. So companies are building internal and external chatbots, scanning all documents that can generate insights, automating processes. A lot is text data right now, but what is really important on top of that is someone who can speak to the business, figure out what can add value, and build something that meets that need. So yeah, that is really important for now.
Okay, definitely. And that point about value keeps coming up. It feels like a big challenge for the whole data industry right now. Um, alongside AI, I think demonstrating like some return on investment seems to be the biggest challenge that the industry faces, particularly in the current climate. And there's a lot of interesting conversation around how companies should do that. Um, so, coming on to our last topic, which is we're going to talk about a little bit. So, digging into the diversity data that we captured. Um, it's worth mentioning that we're doing a deep dive into this more meaningfully later in the year, and I think our survey was just released actually for our diversity in data and AI white paper. We launched that towards the back end of the year, but we did collect, so like look out for that further down the line. But we did collect a few stats on some diversity metrics, particularly gender diversity. So first of all, the guide, it said that 19% of data and AI professionals identify as women. That was a drop in 5% compared to last year. Lottie, why do you think the number of female professionals are remaining low, or even decreasing here?
Yeah, well, I think despite the efforts that are being made now through various channels, it's going to take obviously a lot of time to improve such a big gap. And that's going to take obviously time and education. You can't just magic more women into the industry, which is why I guess early exposure to STEM and data fields could help increase women in data, as well as teaching data related concepts from an early age. Also, increasing like learning opportunities and internships for women in data, and just having good mentors or scholarships or yeah, as I said, internships are just an efficient ways to increase the women in data, but because obviously it needs to be implemented from a young age, it is going to take time.
Yeah, and there are loads of good initiatives going on here, definitely. But maybe it's going to take a little bit of time to see the results of that. I think it was interesting that there was a drop, though. I wonder if that's because there were more engineering and governance roles than in the industry like this year, and they were growing. They were the growing markets. Usually, they're the most underrepresented specialisms in data that we have in terms of gender. So, and the number of those roles increased. So maybe the overall representation have decreased as a result. Um,
Yeah.
uh, is there anything else, Lottie, that you think could help the industry?
What I also think, and maybe it isn't actually spoken about enough, but is the real initiative that companies are taking to consciously attract and retain more female data talent into the industry. So, what are they doing differently, and how can they attract more females into the industry?
Um, yeah, and this is a good opportunity to shout out our sister company, Rockborn, because they mostly hire from non-STEM backgrounds to train data professionals, and that means they can get a much more diverse workforce. So if we've got any listeners to the UK who want to talk about, how they can get a more diverse team, then it's worth reaching out to someone from Rockborn. We don't have Rockborn available for projects in the Netherlands right now. We'll rule out in the future though. So we now have time for a few different questions. So I'm just going to look through what we've received, and maybe this is one for me and Lottie to tackle. So this is from Liz B, who asks, "What's the biggest difference between professionals in the data and AI space in the Netherlands compared to the UK, France, Germany, etc.?" I think we can probably only speak on behalf of the UK at the moment, but Lottie, what do you think are the main differences between the markets in the UK and the Netherlands?
What the main differences I would say is maybe here where we've seen the most demand in terms of roles within data has definitely been senior data engineers, and there does seem to be a big there's been a big demand for these type of professionals throughout the whole year. As well as that, I would say what Max was touching upon earlier, just with the main technologies that are being used. What I found interesting is that in the UK, it's definitely more AWS or even GCP, whereas here we see that a lot more candidates, 80% of the market are obviously using Azure. So I'd say those are two of the main differences that I've seen so far this year.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'm just trying to. There are obviously loads of smaller. There's loads of small cultural differences between the two countries. I think I think one thing that's definitely different is you can tell that the Netherlands has really relied on expats to fill the skills gap for data. The UK's done that to a degree, obviously, but it's more, you feel it more um, uh, in the Netherlands, and a lot of those are English speaking. So where there is a huge gap here is that in Dutch speaking professionals and those skills you just mentioned, Lottie, because there's still a lot of organizations here who operate in Dutch, obviously. And then, when you're looking for those data engineers that are Dutch speaking, it can be really hard to find them. And those candidates have loads of options because they've got all the Dutch speaking roles, all the English speaking roles. And yeah, they have lots of opportunities. Going on to next question. Some from Itua has actually asked several questions. First question was, has the rise of remote work influenced salary levels in the data and AI field, particularly when comparing on-site versus remote roles? Maybe I'll throw this to you first, Max, and maybe shift the question slightly. Do you notice many fully remote freelance roles on the market here?
Not really. There are not a lot of freelance remote roles. Loads of the
Okay.
companies, yeah, are also looking for people that are coming in the office sometimes.
Yeah, and actually that's not really surprising when if you're paying a big rate for a freelancer, often you want them on site and present. So maybe that's something to throw to Lottie. Do you think the amount of remote roles available where people can come from anywhere has affected salary levels in data and AI in the Netherlands?
Well, yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I'd say that maybe one thing that I see how it could influence a salary level is that a candidate might have more flexibility on their salary or be more willing to take a pay cut if they can work remotely, and that's really important to them. But what we found is that if someone's working remotely, and say there's a senior data engineer or a senior data scientist role, they'll usually be paid the same as if they were to be going into the office on a hybrid scale, just because if their responsibilities are the same, or they're working for a smaller startup where they need to take on a lot more responsibility, because often we find that it will be the smaller startups that have more flexibility on remote working, then they'll still need to be paid and compensated in their salary, because they'll still be searching for the same market rates as other data professionals.
Yeah, interesting. And I think one thing that we might have expected was that salaries would drop with the increase in flexibility and also access to other markets in Europe. I don't think we've seen that, to be honest. Salaries haven't been increasing loads, but yeah, salaries haven't been increasing loads, but at the same time, there's still a shortage of data professionals in the Netherlands. So
Yeah.
the people are still compensated well for their skills.
Yeah.
And the second question was, is there a significant difference between the average salary for data and AI between the Netherlands and the rest of the world, and what factors contribute to any disparity? I'll slightly change that question, I think, and maybe go to Max on hourly rates for freelancers, and particularly maybe Dutch speaking freelancers versus looking internationally for remote freelancers. Max, do you notice a big difference in the rates that people charge in the Netherlands versus other territories in Europe?
Yeah, the rates are for Dutch-speaking professionals, freelancers are most of the time way higher than for when sometimes I get a request from one of my clients to do that. I also can look in other countries than the Netherlands, and then I see that the rates are way lower there. So that also gives chances for that professionals to get a freelance job fully remote in the Netherlands because they are way cheaper.
Yeah, and I think we do see that occasionally, but I still think the majority of people, they do want them like on site and in the Netherlands, and they're kind of happy to pay more for that, and get the people into the business. Why do you think that might be?
Yeah, that is because of the culture. I think is really important thing in the Netherlands. They want that the professionals also have a feeling with the company, meet the people in real life, join the events, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think even for freelancers, I think most businesses want to make them feel like they're
Yeah.
part of the team, particularly on like longer projects. Um, Also, I wonder if earlier we were speaking about the gap between the business and the technical teams, and trying to fill that gap and make sure everything was adding value. I think if you can communicate with people in Dutch, particularly in Dutch businesses, it makes a lot of impact. So I think we're running out of time now. So uh, just just to wrap up, again, the link is in the comments below for those who want to get their hands on the copy straight away. There's also a landing page on Harnham website where you can download the guide for the Netherlands or any of our other territories internationally: France, UK, US. It's also worth mentioning that we're actually offering free personalised salary reports for any business who is thinking about scaling their team or wants to sense check their internal benchmark. We can get tailored analysis on your industry and a really specific location, like versus a city and things like that, and that's often super useful if you need to make a case for pay rises in your team, or you need to get budget sign off. It's also a really useful document to have. Often businesses are a bit surprised by the salaries that are available in the data industries for good people. So yeah, reach out if that would be of interest too. And obviously, like, all of us are available to chat about the data market with anyone. So if you want to speak about us helping your team, or roles available, we'd love to speak to anyone. So contact us on LinkedIn. So thanks, Max.
Thank you. It was really nice to be here.
Yeah, great. And thanks, Lottie, for your time and insights.
Thank you, no problem.
And yeah, thanks a lot and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.